Wolfson is Deputy Mayor of New York City, and he joins us in the studio this evening. Howard, thanks for coming by.
Good to be here.
So you are here lobbying on behalf of the Bloomberg administration.
On behalf of the city, yes.
And it's all budget all the time, I would assume.
It's mostly budget, yes. We are making the case that New York City deserves more of its fair share, especially with regard to education funding. We are looking at the possibility of laying off and attriting about 6,400 teachers. We can't afford to do that in many respects, but unfortunately we are being compelled to do it as a result of the budget process.
So did you bring your flak jacket?
No, I didn't bring my flak jacket. We had a lot of really good meetings. Democrats and Republicans, members of the Assembly, the Senate, and the governor's staff. And, you know, it's a difficult process that people here are working through. We don't underestimate the difficulty in passing a budget that has to be balanced in these very difficult times. So there is a real difficult challenge ahead of everyone in Albany. Our hope is that they will pass a budget soon. The lack of a budget is a problem for our planning process. We hope that they will pass a budget that restores a good portion of our education aid because our kids and our teachers are depending on it.
Well, okay, but you actually sound very calm about this, but there's been a lot of heated rhetoric going back and forth.
I try to be calm.
I know, you're a very calm kind of guy. Anyway, so there has been a lot of heated rhetoric going on about this. Actually, you had on the very day that the mayor was actually still putting out his budget for the fiscal year of 2011, which included those layoffs, and then subsequently laying the blame at the feet of Albany because they've cut the governor's budget cuts. There's been restorations made by the legislature, but
yes,
there's no deal. So then basically the mayor said, you know, I'm going to assume the worst case scenario because that's probably the safest thing to do.
Right.
And then subsequently the state budget director put out a very harshly worded statement and said that the city was trying to scapegoat the state and that accused, I think, the administration of selective accounting.
Right. Well, I met today with Mr. Magna. I had a delightful meeting. He's a really good guy. He knows his stuff really well. And I took it as a compliment because essentially what he was saying was that the city has engaged in more prudent and responsible budgeting over the past several years than the state has.
That's what selective accounting means?
No, that's not all he said, if you want to read the whole statement. He also basically said, you guys are in decent shape, you have a surplus, why do you need to do this?
$3 billion, right?
Well, and the surplus that the mayor socked away during good years, which was the prudent thing to do, in all fairness, the state did not do that. The mayor did that, and as a result, we are going to make up a lot of the gap with our own money that we socked away. The mayor also, 9 times over the last couple of years, we had reductions when we saw things were heading down. The state did not do that. So we appreciate the compliment that we are getting as a result of us being good fiscal managers, but we don't think we should be penalized for being good fiscal managers.
So what did Magnus say then? I mean, what did the budget director say? You said you had a delightful meeting. Did you come away feeling like, okay, good, I've made my case and now we're going to get our money back?
I mean, I think it's unfair for me to characterize what other people say in these private meetings. I came away from all of our meetings with the fact that people want a budget here. They're willing to listen. They obviously have points of view. We are not going to agree with everyone on everything. Certainly the members of our city delegation, I think, understood the importance of restoring this education money. Nobody wants to see teachers laid off. We can't come in and wave a magic wand. Folks here have to grapple with this challenge themselves. But I think the meetings were good, and I'm glad that I was able to come up here and do it.
But the blame game in terms of, and then subsequently there were reports and there are anonymous sources, you know, inside the governor's staff saying, you know, well, 2 can play at that game and we've got muscle too, and you guys, you know, who do you think you are, et cetera. How does that help move the ball down the field at a time when things are so acrimonious in Albany? I mean, and certainly the mayor has a history of being at odds with Albany. You know, how does this help the situation?
I was not up here in a sense of acrimony at all. I mean, I didn't get that sense from anyone. I think people appreciate when the mayor's folks come up and lay out specifically what it is that we have concerns about. I think people like to talk about substance. I mean, some of this stuff is kind of theater, but then you get in the rooms with folks and you say, here's what we can really live with, here's what we need, here's what our kids need, and the meetings are good.
But along the lines of theater, actually, there's been, I mean, I remember this from last year. The mayor said, I'm going to have to lay off this many teachers. It was again with the teachers, if I'm not mistaken. And then subsequently the stimulus funds came through and, you know, it was all okay and everybody stood down and shook hands in the end.
This is an ongoing process. And the reason I'm up here is because we don't have a budget, and I'm hopeful that the numbers in the governor's budget will be improved by the legislature. So our goal is not to lay off teachers. Our goal is to retain the best teaching workforce in the country, which we believe. I mean, we've made enormous progress in the last 8 years under this mayor in education. We think we're going to keep making progress. I'm up here arguing for more money for our teachers, our students. Michael Mulgrew's doing the same.
Right,
President of the UFB.
right, at odds, right? And like
Not on that, on the issue of whether or not the state should contribute more money to the city, there is absolutely no daylight between ourselves and the UFB.
No, it's
we are
the
up here with the same
charter
message.
school issue, right? Which is another of the main goals or the main planks of the Albany agenda that the mayor has this year. And you're pushing for that too, lobbying on that too?
Well, look, I think everyone wants to have the best possible application for the federal race to the top funding that we can get. I think the union wants that, the city wants that, I think the state wants that, the assembly, the senate, the governor. The question is, what are the details? And, we want to work with all of our partners, all of the other stakeholders who have a vested interest in this, in trying to come up with the best possible deal around race to the top. Now, it will improve our application if we are able to lift the charter cap. That's part of the process. The Obama administration believes that, we ought to encourage some additional charters. So we're hoping to do that. Okay,
and that particular issue is actually one that the unions are not so fond of. And the AFL-CIO just yesterday actually started targeting 2 major charter school supporters, one of which is Craig Johnson, a Democrat from Nassau County. And the mayor has come out very strongly in support of Craig Johnson and said, I'm going to support him, which is ironic, actually, because I think that the mayor supported his opponent, which would have been Cesar Trunzo, I think, in 2000.
No,
that's not right. No, that's not right. That's Brian Foley. Wrong guy. No, Craig Johnson won in a special. So
that's right.
I can't. And he did. I think the mayor did back Craig Johnson. She was the clerk.
I was
of
offering
Nassau
a presidential
County.
campaign.
Yes, I know. Not on your watch. But it is a switch for the mayor to do this because historically he was the largest individual contributor to the Senate Republicans.
Look, we've done an awful lot of very good work with the Senate Republicans, and we have a great delegation of city Senate Republicans that we will be supporting unequivocally. But the mayor has always said that he's going to support somebody regardless of party, whether or not they do what's in the best interest of the city, and that's the mayor's sole criteria.
Okay, but he pumped in just before the last big fight for the majority in 2008. He pumped in a considerable amount of cash into the Republican coffers, so he clearly chose a side in that fight. Now you see that he seems to be departing from that. So are you saying that he is no longer going to support the Senate Republicans?
I did not say that at all. I think what we are looking at is to see how this process unfolds. Again, we are certainly going to support Marty Golden. He's a great senator. Andy Lanza is a great senator. Frank Padovan, these are all great senators that the mayor is going to support. If the mayor makes a decision that he's going to support one conference or another, we haven't made that decision yet. And again, that really does depend on what happens in this process.
Is that open? Is it a possibility that the mayor will write a big check to one conference or the other?
I wouldn't rule anything in or out.
Interesting. Because then, I mean, the possibility is that you're sort of throwing the dice, right? And at a point where you're 1 seat away from a majority, 2 seats away from deadlocking, if you roll wrong, you could end up...
I know, high stakes, right?
With a not a very good... Well, I mean, in the case of the Bloomberg administration, yes, because Albany has put the kibosh on a number of the mayor's high level, again, not on your watch, but the West Side Stadium, congestion pricing. Those are things that Albany killed, legacy issues for the mayor.
Again, we've had a lot of really good relationships with the Senate Republicans. We've worked very well with Leader Skelos. We've worked very well with our city delegation. But the important criteria for the mayor is who is really standing up for the city in this very difficult time.
Has either Skelos or John Sampson, the Democratic conference leader, made the ask?
Again, I'm not going to characterize private conversations that we may or may not have had.
And so is the mayor said yesterday also that he was going to stay out largely of statewide races, so I assume he's not going to pick sides in the governor's race? He said typically that's what he has done. He said largely that would be his inclination, but again, I'm not sure I would rule anything in or out. But he will back Dan Donovan, the Staten Island DA, if he runs for AG.
Correct.
So, but this is then based on personal relationships entirely for him.
No, it's based on who he thinks has been good, who he thinks has been good for the city. Dan Donovan's been an excellent district attorney for the people of Staten Island. Mayor knows him, he's worked well with him, but the bottom line is he's got a great record. And so we're going to look at people not at their party label, who's been good for their constituents, who's been good for the city.
And in terms of the mayor and his personal political future, have you had a discussion with him about that lately?
We have, and we talk about how we can help make him the best mayor he can be every day.
And what about the best president he might be at some point in time?
The only conversations I have about that topic are with you and your colleagues, not with the mayor.
Are you sure?
I am positive.
Oh, okay, I'm not going to get this out of you even if it wasn't true. Thank you, Howard.